You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome to the Health Hub on Radio Maria Canada, exploring cutting-edge health and wellness information and therapies, helping you to take your health to the next level. I'm your host, Kathy Biasi, and I'm an holistic nutritionist and a professional cancer coach. Companies are trending in the direction of supporting the mental and physical health of their employees to, of course, support them in their health journey and to improve productivity. Offering benefit packages and attention to the workplace environment are two key areas of focus here. But is there an area of health being overlooked? Our guest today, Pam Buchanan, believes so. Pam is the founder of Quantum Sense, and she stands at the intersection of corporate prowess and soulful innovation. With over 40 years of experience in corporate America, including pivotal roles at Nasdaq, where she worked closely with tech titans like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, Pam brings extensive experience to the table. Her journey to quantum sense began with a profound assertion that the modern world is missing a focus on a very vital contributor to success: soul health. This insight spurred over a decade of research, culminating in her innovative concepts and frameworks. Pam's background uniquely positions her to understand the evolving corporate landscape and the benefit of putting an emphasis on a connection to the senses to drive soul health and holistic well-being at work. Pam has developed programs tailored for companies that are proven to enhance employee well-being, reduce anxiety, and boost creativity, ultimately fostering a more satisfying work-life balance. Covering topics from neuro-aesthetics to sound engineering, Pam explores how these can be useful to benefit the soul from the outside in through the gateway of the senses. It's a very interesting topic that we're working with today. We talk about what Pam's vision of soul health is, and why soul health is a key piece of our overall health, and how we can attend to the health of our soul in the workplace and therefore make that work-home life balance much better. Please do stay tuned with us. We will be back in just a few minutes to speak with Pam Buchanan.
You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now continue with the program, The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back to the Health Hub, everybody. We'd love to have you follow us on our social sites. We are at the Health Hub RMC, and we are on X, Instagram, and Facebook. That is still hard for me to say. It's been 5 years of saying Twitter, so I'm trying to really get a hold on that. So X, Instagram, and Facebook at the Health Hub RMC. If you'd like to email us, we are thh@radiomaria.ca. Always love to hear from you. Pam, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Great to be here, and thanks for having me.
Well, it's a very interesting topic. We've talked about the soul in other areas, not specifically related to the workplace. But before we get into how you have developed this area of health, this pillar of health for employees, maybe it's a good idea to take us on your journey to get here. In the introduction, of course, we heard that you have worked closely with the likes of Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. And, seems to be, and this is, I'm sure where you're going to correct me, a very much of a departure. So bring us up to speed on how you got here.
Yeah, I had an amazing 40-year career in corporate America. That included my time with Nasdaq in Silicon Valley, taking companies public with the likes of, as you said, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, which was very, very exciting. I felt like I was, seeing the future. But as exciting and dynamic as it was, your physical health is great. Your mental health, as always, has its ups and downs, but mostly it's doing well. But something's, missing a little bit. And so I've always been focused on, a deeper meaning in life in general. And so after 40 years, I wanted to explore that a little bit more. I've always, dabbled in it, if you will, reading, all the books that the great gurus like Deepak Chopra, has written over the past couple of decades, and really wanted to explore this and see how it could fit into corporate America. And I realized that, despite the physical, programs such as, okay, we'll give you gym memberships, we'll have, in-house gyms, we'll have nutrition updates, and really the corporations do focus on the physical health. And then now, of course, they're focused on the mental health with mental health days and access to therapists. But what was missing was the soul, and people were still not really, saying, hey, we're happy. Again, the unhappy level of employees is really risen, not decreased, with the advent of, employees talking about physical and mental health. Mm-hmm. So what is missing? And I believe that is the soul health, which brings it all together, because we are mind, body, and soul. So how do you get access to the soul? And that's the tricky part, right? Is it, it's not about religion. It truly is about part of your being. So I started embarking and developing programs that could help employees, talk more about the soul and their passions and how to get there. And that's where I developed a program that I call Ground, Elevate, Evolve.
It is hard, especially verbally, to unpack the soul from mental health and the soul from religion. So yes. When you are working, first of all, who is your clientele? Are you working with corporate leaders to try and implement your programs, or are you working directly with employees?
I'm working, you engage with the corporate leaders and talk about programs for the employees. So it is programs for the employees. Mm-hmm. So it's not a leadership program in essence. It's really a well-being program to engage their employees at a different level and to increase their happiness, thus increase their productivity and commitment to the corporation.
Mm-hmm. And then how do you approach the corporate heads with this notion of soul? It's a very difficult one for a lot of us to grasp.
Yes. So I think it is difficult. It's not talked about as much, and that's why I am talking about it, so that it becomes a more talked about subject. I mean, we are seeing soul in many different areas, or people talking more about the soul outside of religion, because again, I think, times are, very tense, and, there's a lot of tension everywhere in the world. And so people are looking for more deeper meaning. So I talk about it really is going deeper than your physical health. It's going deeper than your mental health. It really is an energetic light inside of us that have you tapped into. And, how can we make it more tangible? And that's why you start with your five senses, which we're all born with our sensory abilities, right? Babies basically sense, the world when they come out of the womb and are using all of those five senses to get to know their new environment. So I really start there and say, let's start from I don't want to say the beginning, but let's start with, what we were born with and how do you access your senses on a daily basis and recognize that. So let's just start by recognizing, like you walk into a room and let's say your mood is automatically uplifted. Why is that? Is it the visual component? Is it visually attractive with the colors and the objects in the room? Is it the smell that uplifts you? Or maybe you walk into a room and it kind of is blah and you don't get that uplifted feeling. So I really start there and people begin to recognize, I see what you're doing. It really is as simple as tapping into the five senses to know who your true being is. And I guess I talk a little bit also about being a twin, which I'm an identical twin, and I am physically identical in body, right? And if you were to see her on the street, you might say, oh, there's Pam, but our souls are different. So I try to say, let's transcend beyond just looking at someone from their physical aspect and really get to their energetic aspect, their soul aspect of who they are.
So do you equate, you're obviously equating soul with energy. Do you equate the soul with energy frequency? Do you go that far?
Yes. So the vibration and the frequencies and different hertz levels, and obviously all objects truly vibrate. So we are vibrating beings. And so if you can have a lower frequency, right? And how do you raise your frequency? And it is by putting certain, again, back to the senses, whether it's scents or objects or colors, it's about putting that in your environment. So I say, let's start outside in. Because let's say you come home and your place is, not appealing, right? Let's say you're sitting on an old couch that's brown and has holes in it, and maybe, it's a musty smell. Is that going to uplift you? No, it's not. And it's going to lower your vibration, whether you realize it or not. So let's start realizing what really is important, and that is your vibrational energy and how you're interacting with the world. Obviously, I'm not saying don't go to the doctor for your heart and your lungs and other physical parts of your being, but I think we've checked that box and we have resources for that. I want to be a resource for people to understand their soul and their energetic vibration.
Can you be sense dominant when it comes to finding or tapping into your soul, or would you say it's a five sense? If you're going to get the true nature of your soul, it's a five sensual.
I do believe it's taken in all five senses, but obviously some of us do have a stronger sense of smell, let's say, versus, sound. So, we can be, your term sense dominant, we can be sense dominant. So I could maybe walk into a room and the smell wouldn't bother me as much, although my senses are still taking that in. And let's say it's a lower vibrating smell, then my vibration is going to automatically lower with that. So even though I might not be able to recognize that, I think our energetic being recognizes that at the same level. If that makes sense.
It does, but would you say then that the soul is a reflection of experiences? So, for instance, when you talk about a smell that you might not like versus, say, curry, a curry can go one way or the other with many people, right?
Yes.
Is that because you've had experience with certain things, and our experience is key to understanding how to further develop our soul?
I do believe so, because that makes you an individual. And so, yes, we have to take in our experiences. So let's say you grew up with your mom cooking with curry, and let's say that's a familiar smell for you. Let's say someone else did not, and it's unfamiliar, but I still think either you recognize, oh, that's a curry smell, and the memory is a good memory because it reminds me of my mom, or it's a newer smell and I still like it. So you could still, let's say curry, and I haven't researched what curry vibrates at, let's say, but it's an uplifting smell, and it uplifts your energetic being. It's going to affect that person the same way energetically, if that makes sense.
That's interesting. Then
Yeah.
what would you call a person? Well, not what would you call? What would be the characteristics of somebody who has a healthy soul versus a person who doesn't have a healthy soul? If those are that might be the wrong terminology that you use, but you know what I'm saying? Like, where would you say the person has arrived versus this person has a lot of work to do?
I say if you're living, so the best way to measure that is, am I living out of fear or am I living out of the love vibration? So there's really two ways: negative, positive, fear, love, however you want to look at it. But, am I living out of, let's say, more negative? Am I attracting more negativity to my life or angst to my life? Is it not in flow? Then you would say you're not living out of your soul's purpose on a daily basis or a majority of the time. If you're in flow and you're feeling joy and positivity, you're going to start to attract more of that. But you have to start recognizing and not putting yourself in, let's say, a negative situation, because the negative molecule is much heavier than a positive molecule. So let's say we want to go to this party. We know that, the majority of people there might be make you more anxious or negative, or, an hour. It's really, you can't afford to go, because that negative energy will be attached to you, and then it's going to take you more time to rebound from that. The typical ratio is 9 negatives or 9 positives to 1 negative to uplift you. So let's say that you get 9 positive remarks and only 1 negative. That is equal to neutralize that. But the saying goes, I learned a long time ago in corporate America, you put your best salesperson with your lower producing salesperson, and guess what happens? The best salesperson goes lower, not the opposite, typically, because of that heaviness of the negative ion, if you will.
So, I mean, working within the corporate world obviously poses challenges than if you're working with someone who, outside of the corporate world, or if you had your own clientele of patients that came into you looking to improve their health versus you're trying to improve a work environment. Because when we're talking about going to work, many people may feel limited into how they can actually promote positivity within their space. They may be all well and good in trying to do this. So how do you deal with that aspect of working within the corporate world when people aren't buying in? Because then they would be the negative that are bringing down the person really trying to seek out and improve their soul health.
Yes, it's not something that you have to go around talking, oh, I'm improving my soul health, or what are you doing for your soul health? I would love that to be a dialogue, just like, oh, did you work out at the gym today? Is your physical being feeling better? But I think it's the little small steps that you can take. So focus on what you can control within your environment. So let's say you have a desk. What is on your desk? What do you have, a candle or diffuser? More and more corporations are bringing in different types of sound, because sound has been studied and there's negative impacts to certain sound vibrations in the corporate environment. And you do find more and more companies bringing in their own scent, if you will, like you walk into a building or a retail shop and they're owning their own scent. So you're little by little, you're seeing companies, even if they don't equate it to the soul health and they're equating it to just more overall well-being, they're still doing it. So I say it's the third leg to the stool, right? And you have to have all three. So what are you doing? So whether it's the corporation who says, oh, we're going to infuse our office building with this uplifting scent and see how it affects our employees and productivity, or is it the individual employee, putting, let's say roses on their desks so that they visually have a positive impact as well as scent-wise.
Sorry, go ahead, Pam. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know it's a slow integration, but just like everything, the more we use the word connected to ourselves, such as soul, the more comfortable people will get. And we're at a time in, the universe, the world, that it is becoming more known that there is something missing. What is it? And I think that is being connected to our soul. We obviously need to be connected to all three parts of our being, but the soul is something that we, let's say, gave away to religion, or, just equate it with romance and love, like your soulmate.
I'm interested to know if you've done any research in the area of light and how offices are lit, and if that makes a difference in, central perception.
Absolutely. It does. And, again, I think just, earlier we were talking about the weather, and, in the winter months, it can get gloomy in certain areas, and it absolutely affects a person. I think it's not only on the soul level, but more on the physical level as well. So that, I haven't done, again, the technical, the medical research on how it integrates into your body, but we all talk about our rhythms and, how certain, again, lighting does affect us, whether it's the white light, the yellow light, the hospital lighting, it does affect our beings, and probably at three different levels, right? And that's the next step once people start talking about soul health, is to integrate it all. And it's about our collective being and humanness here on this earth, and how we can be the most productive and get the most joy out of life.
Absolutely.
I think that's what it's all about. And joy in every aspect of our life. That's why I want to start with corporations, because there is such negativity attached to it. And I think that we can thrive in our corporate lives. I had a wonderful career, and for 40 years. And I'm not going to say that there were not downs or angst or, issues involved, because obviously there were, but I chose to stay on the positive and look at the positive, although the negative wore me out. Right. So I think there's a higher rate of burnout, obviously, right now. Also, they talk about that. And okay, you're doing all of these programs for the physical health and the mental health. So what's missing? There's something missing if there's still a high level of burnout. And again, I think everyone wants to get to know themselves better and what their passions are and what their, whole purpose is here.
Well, when it comes to corporations, when it comes to our employment, a lot of people spend the better part of their day within, the confines of their office or within the workspace. So it's intuitively speaking, it makes a lot of sense to try and hit this aspect of health in the corporate world because, we bring it home. And so to be able to even, we're going to talk a little bit about your program when we come back, but even to equip people with the right questions to ask, to the right pathway to go down so that, during the day, people can adjust. I think it's a very important thing that you are doing. And as we get on to integration of soul health with other aspects of health, I do completely agree that dealing with the soul is becoming more and more apparent because there's still issues with workplace productivity, even though so many companies are forward thinking when it comes to the physical and mental health. But we're going to take a break right now, and we'll come back and then we'll get into how each area of health cross paths and into your program and get more involved in what you're actually doing and teaching people. So everybody, we will be back in just a couple of minutes.
You are listening to The Health Hub here on Radio Maria Canada, a Catholic voice wherever you are. To contact us and be a part of the show, email thh@radiomaria.ca. We now continue with the program. Here once again is your host, Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back to the Health Hub. We're talking with Pam Buchanan about soul health and integrating it into the corporate space. We've come a long way in integrative health, Pam. So much so that people are looking to the whole body when we are trying to examine and move forward our health, our better health. We don't want to go back to that space where we're dealing with the physical, the mental, and the soul health they are pillars of health, but they do have to be integrated to fit into, the forward-moving thoughts about health. So when it comes to soul health and frequency, and me being a nutritionist, the one thing that, we learned when I was at school is that different foods have different vibrations and so bring in different energies to the body. But
Yes.
How do you integrate soul health with the physical and the mental?
So, I think that's where I talk, the first pillar of my program is grounded. Are you grounded? And because you really have to ground yourself in the physical and the mental to access the elevation of your soul. So again, that goes back to the senses. And as you say, food, which is taste, correct? And it all affects, yes, your organs are affected. I say the physical health is about your organs, but also your nervous system is affected. As you know, are you getting enough of your B vitamins? Are you getting enough of the D? And how does that affect you? And that's affecting at the neurological level as well. So you got to ask yourself, after I eat a bag of potato chips, how am I feeling? Well, that was very low vibrating food. It's processed food. So the questions to start to ask yourself, how much fresh, high vibrating food am I getting? Now, I know, again, that, fresh food would be more the normal language, but hopefully we can integrate the vibrational language into it. But, am I eating fresh foods? If I'm eating all packaged goods right now, can I slowly integrate and start eating, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, how much meat am I eating and all of that. And then really go back afterwards and say, how is my body feeling? And then can I live my soul's purpose? Because if your body's not feeling well, you can't access your soul at a deep level. But it's not like one day you're going to wake up and say, oh my gosh, I feel, that my soul can live its greatest life. It does first have to start with the physical, then the mental, and then your soul. But you can take small steps. And I think our society, again, has not focused as much on that because, again, let's face it, back in the dark ages, you had to scrounge for food, right? I mean, and now you and I, regardless of where we are, we can typically go to a store and buy some sort of food. So we should start thinking, okay, now I have choices. And what am I going to do? I can, even if I grew up with eating packaged goods or, not the healthiest of diets, how can I start choosing that? And it's really, one selection at a time. Mm-hmm. And so that is important, the nutrition part of it. And that goes into the taste and what are you putting into your body. And yes, everything around you does vibrate. So let's start putting the highest vibration possible into our cellular structure so that we can start thriving instead of surviving.
There are two areas that interest me in greatness when it comes to talking about the soul. One is technology. Technology is in AI. We talk about AI a lot now. Technology is creeping very quickly into the health space. And then there is the topic of neuroscience. So if we have to end the show on these two topics, I think it would be absolutely fine because I think it is important to delve into these two spaces. So let's start with technology. Where do you see technology fitting into creating a healthy soul?
I think obviously I was in Silicon Valley for so long and, around technology and people that were creating, whether it was a widget that could take us to, new frontiers and that included technology. I do think that it's important for us to evolve. But then I do think that we need to have, boundaries around it because we can all get, sucked into the internet and scrolling. And we have to really, again, self-regulate, if you will. But I do think that's why it's so important to start recognizing your soul at that level because technology physically doesn't hurt us. Mentally, yes, it does affect us on a mental level, but it could be positive as well as negative. But where it can't access or hurt us really is at the soul if we know what our soul's purpose and live out of our soul. And I like to say, are you living out of your ego or are you living out of your soul? So let's say technology, and especially for girls and, the younger generation, the Instagram and posting and, look at my life, that's really ego driven. That's not soul based, right? So, why are you posting? Why are you looking at what your friends are doing? Why aren't you connecting with them more in real time or having conversations? Because that would fulfill your soul more so than just, saying I have 100 friends. We're all very close, which is almost impossible to keep in contact at the physical level. But do you really have 100 friends? And, do you find yourself getting jealous? Do you find yourself wanting to be in certain areas that you're not? Or you then come home and you feel depleted because, you're not doing as much as your friends you perceive they're doing. So I think you have to be really careful about the negative aspects of, if you want to call social media, the technology that's been introduced into the world that I didn't really grow up with.
No. And I think that is an issue as well, because I didn't grow up with it either. And my children are older, so they missed a lot of it too. My youngest one is 9 years younger than my oldest child. So she was kind of in the midst of it all starting. But it's a difficult thing for some of us to. It's a cross purposes technology, and it is a hard thing for young people to navigate, but it's also a hard thing for us to help them navigate and help for us. I guess intent is the word here that we're looking for when it comes to a social media type of conversation. Now, what about the neuroscience part of it? How do you bring that piece into soul health?
Yeah, so the neuroscience is really important because it is about your nervous system, which is how your sensory being reacts to the environment around you. So you have to pay attention to it, because what your nervous system reacts to positively may be something my nervous system reacts to negatively, but they're finding more and more about the brain, right? And how, the connections, if you will, go together and create an outcome that may be different than the next person because of the way your brain is wired. So I think it's important to understand how your nervous system is connected to really all parts of your being, right? And again, I think we're just the tip of the iceberg in talking about neuroscience, and really neuroscience and the environment. So I am working with some architects, some designers, and they're studying, how it affects the whole being. If you look at cities and buildings, they're all being developed for the whole person. How are we interacting? What materials are we using? What colors are we using? And that is because how does it affect our nervous system and our, how a person, thrives or just survives in this environment, and what colors, what sounds. Again, it all goes back to your sensory body.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Like the whole area of neuroscience is so fascinating to me, from correct posture to the chair you sit on, how it all integrates into how we not only experience, but also how we, perceive our surroundings. I think it's a fascinating area.
Well, if it just think about when I started work, let's say I was just given, a regular chair with, a regular desk and, beige walls, old furniture. It all was mismatched. But we weren't paying attention to that at that time, right? Now I talk to, founders, and they're like, oh my, we need to attract employees, and to do so, we need to change our, colors and our entryway, and, are we bringing lunch in or not bringing lunch in? And how are we doing that? And again, it all drills down to the neuroscience, and, more and more younger people are tapping into that and studying that. And again, as I said, I think we still have a lot to learn, just like, sound is being researched on how it can help Parkinson's disease, right? Like, are there just different vibrations that we can utilize and devices that we can help put on people, and it will affect the nervous system in a positive way, and thus reduce some symptoms of Parkinson's.
It's amazing how in some areas we are really, really moving in the right direction. Do you have any success stories you'd love to share with us?
I think, because I feel like every time I get an opportunity to talk to a corporation, it is a success story that they've embraced the topic of soul health. So I would say for the most part, the positive feedback I get, and again, it's not like, oh my God, my employee the next day went out and was happy and talked about their soul. It's a build-up process, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it brought their attention to something that they hadn't thought about before. And so that to me is the success when they say, Pam, we hadn't thought about it this way. We're going to start incorporating different sounds or objects, or look at the color scheme of our office space and encourage our employees to, put together, an office space that is sensory, thriving for them. Mm-hmm. And so that to me is a positive. I would say.
Have you been well received in the corporate world?
I will say once I'm in, I'm very well received, but it has been a challenge to start momentum within corporations. After it's been now a couple of years, I would have thought that I would have gained a little bit more momentum in larger programs. And that's what I'm focused on right now, is like year-long programs, because I don't think it's just have me on a webinar once and you'll learn everything you need to know. That's why my program is ground, elevate, evolve. So we go into first the senses, then the energetic being, and then your cellular structure. And we combine all that together to make your whole being, thrive. And, ask yourself, it really is, as you said, asking yourself these questions daily, maybe even hourly. And that's what I leave them with. What questions are you asking yourself? Pause and ask yourself, how am I feeling at this given moment? And look around your environment and say, that object over there really makes me feel good. Maybe I need to bring that more into my life, or focus more on that, or that energy from that person isn't, vibing with me. I don't want to engage with that person as often as I do. I don't want to get drawn into a negative conversation. So again, going back and asking yourself these questions only you can answer, right? Like, again,
yeah.
Yes, the higher vibration objects should attract you if you're living at your soul level, right? And then you start to elevate that part of yourself. And then once you start living at that elevated vibration, then you attract people and environment and businesses that are living at that level, and the negative slowly starts to drop away and you're living in flow.
Mm-hmm. As with everything, it's going to be a process. And, as we started the show off, the concept of the soul is a little bit harder to grasp. It's not as tangible as seeing someone who's in good physical health, for instance. Your company is called Quantum Sense. And if you could share with us, is it for individuals to take a look at your site, or are you encouraging?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I do talk to individuals as well. So absolutely. I mean, my bigger goal obviously is to focus on corporations because I can reach more people, but
right.
I am more than happy to consult individually with people. So please go to my site, Quantum Sense. It's named Quantum Sense because if you're living your sensory being, you're going to elevate yourself to the quantum level. And so are you living in a quantum sense lifestyle, if you will?
Is this just a parting question here? Is this what you're doing full time now? Or you still have your feet on both sides of the corporate world?
No, this is what I'm doing full time.
Oh, wonderful. What a great way to transition from one area to another by now helping the corporations that you were working for. I think it's terrific.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm, excited. And again, I think there's, still a lot of growth to happen in this area. And I want to be like on the forefront of that. And I understand that it's not immediate, aha, right? Like it's not one of those, but it soon will be like, I got to have soul health. I have
Absolutely.
physical health, I have my mental health, but what am I doing for my soul? And as you said, it's hard to make tangible. That's why we focused on the physical first, right? Like I can see your physical being. I know what the heart looks like, your lungs look like, and people can see that, but they can't see their soul. So how can we make the soul a little bit more tangible, a little bit more, bring it into the reality and live at the soul level versus the ego level, if you will?
Absolutely. Well, I do want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us. I really do appreciate it. And I love the concept you're bringing forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here, and thank you for having me.
Everybody, we will talk to you next week on The Health Hub.
You have been listening to The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi, here on Radio Maria Canada.